crossed the halfway point in the Lord's Prayer. There's only 4 more weeks, including today. I know you're excited. We're just getting to this important turning point. The first 4 weeks, really the first half of the Lord's Prayer, is very much focused on God and our relationship to God in the sense of who God is and what God's about and what we hope for that God will be about in this world. It's about submitting, if you will. And the second half of the Lord's Prayer is really about turning our attention toward what we need from God. What is it we wish? What is it we hope for? So today's passage is one we're all very familiar with. Give us today our daily bread. Or give us this day our daily bread. Or hablan lachma desunkunan yalmana. I'm sure any one of those are ones you pray in your everyday life. It's interesting to look at what each one of those 4 words mean in the original Aramaic. And the reason why is it's helpful for us to see maybe a little bit more about this intention. I think it's not an accident that we begin by asking God to produce in us, provide for us, ask for us, produce in us, and it's us, not me. It's not an invitation to provide me with my bread. It's not enough to produce bread for me. It is bread for us. And it's all of us, not just the us's that look like us, but the us's that don't look like us, that don't seem like us, that don't think like us. We are asking for we are asking for this production, this giving from God for us. Give us. And what are we asking for? Bread. Now, when you and I think of bread, I have to be honest with you. I think about the loaves. For instance, we're going to have communion today. And guess what's on the table? Bread. This is what I think of when I think of bread. Bread is something that I learned to bake better during the pandemic. Lots and lots of experimental attempts to bake bread, some of which my family said, "That was a nice try, Dad." "That was a nice try, James." Those are the ones that, we were going for gluten-free communion, and so I made the congregation, such as it was during the pandemic, test my bread every week. And there were some weeks when they were like, "Hope you're going to try a new recipe next week, James." That's what we think of when we think of bread. Now, from a first century Aramaic perspective, though, bread is what we need to sustain us. And it's not just the physical bread that we break and share for a meal. It's what sustains our spirit. It's what feeds us from the inside out. It's that insight we need. We're right in the middle of a tough problem at work or at home. And for some reason, ChatGPT won't just give us a simple answer. And we got to figure out how to do it ourselves. And we're looking for just enough insight for this thing. That's what in the first century they would have been asking for with bread. Not just enough to feed the family physically, but also to feed ourselves so that we get the right insight about how we can best be the people of Doolan. How can we best be a church here in the littlest city? How can we best be the people we're meant to be when we go out into the world? How can we live like followers of Jesus? I need the insight. Because in any given moment, there's not just a canned answer to every question that people come at us with, or every issue that we face. We've got to ask the questions. Maybe that old-fashioned question that I remember hearing over and over again that became so cliche, no one wants to answer it anymore. What would Jesus do? And apparently, for some people, Jesus would do a lot of things I don't think Jesus would really do, what would Jesus have me do, such as I am right now in the 21st century, with the knowledge I have, the skills I have, the work that I have, all those pieces. The question is, what is the bread that I need for this moment? How can I be bread for my neighbor? How can I, and sometimes it's physical bread, sometimes it's providing a gift card for somebody in need. It's what we do during the ministry of hope. Those are the things that we do that we become, for the people in our community, bread for the people in need. But sometimes it's just a listening ear. When somebody is struggling, feeling sad, overwhelmed, in pain, they just need someone to talk to them or not talk to them, because we're really good at the talking part, not always so good at the listening part. We should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger, if I'm to believe the epistle of James, the letter of James. And so we should be quick to listen, because being heard is something a lot of people don't feel like they are in the world today. That's why I think there's so much anger and fear, because we don't feel like we're being heard. So we can be bread for other people by being that open ear, that kind word, that word of encouragement. And we can look to our neighbors to be the bread that we need sometimes when we are struggling. So bread doesn't just have to be delicious, savory, buttered deliciousness that you share with friends or family. It can be more than that. It can be what you need in everyday life. And speaking of what you need, what's interesting that's not translated into the King James Version of the Lord's Prayer, which is what we pray, give us this day our daily bread, is give us the bread. Desun kunan means that is needful. Give me what I need today, not what just I want. We're really good. We have a lot of wants. As first worlders, we have a list. The newest, the fastest, the quickest, the most sumptuous. It's interesting. When we were in Ireland, I was talking to somebody about a meal that was provided for us. I think it was a waiter or waitress. And I said something about, this just seems like the perfect size. I won't need any to take home. And this person proceeded to tell me how they had been to the United States and they thought our portion control was out of control. They were like, you bring enough on one plate to feed 6 people. What is that all about? And, I was like, I don't know. It's more than is needful. And we're used to such a superabundance that there's leftovers. So much waste. So instead, what we're asking for is just enough bread for today. Just enough bread. The needful bread, not just the want bread, because we often, I won't say we. I often confuse in my own personal life the things that are needful and the things that are wantful. The things that I want, I don't want something that I need, I want something I want. I want something pretty. I want something, a little Love Actually came into my mind. I just picture that little section. If you've never seen it, I'm not encouraging. So, it is, we want what we want, and we think that's what we need. And this little phrase in the prayer asks us to remember that when we're seeking from God something in our lives, we're asking for what we really need. And oftentimes what we want is more than we need. This is not an indictment against any of us. It is just the reality of being human. I think we'd always like to. I'm not telling you. James told me I just needed to focus on what I need today. I'm not putting any more away for retirement because that's tomorrow. Forget that, I'm not saving up. I'm not investing now. I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to let it see what happens tomorrow. And when it's tomorrow, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying don't plan or invest wisely. But today, the big question of you and of God, and this text invites us to remember, is what I'm asking for is enough to get me through. Enough insight. Yes, God is abundant. Just enough love to get by. Just the right words. I'll tell you one of the most important things I do and one of the most difficult things I do, and I think it's true for all clergy, is when you stand with someone and you lead a memorial service, a funeral, and people want the right words. and you don't know what the right words are. You know, I've been to funerals where the person who died was colored in language that was clearly by a person who had no idea about who the person was, because they made them out to be perfect. And if you ever come to a memorial service I do, it's unlikely that I will color the perfect person, because none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And people appreciate it when you know them well enough to see all the sides, to see the complete picture. But one of my big prayers every week before I stand up here to talk to you all, every week before, or every time that I do a funeral, is what are the words that I need for today? Give me insight that I need for today, so that the words I speak will bring healing, not hurt, not more brokenness, but might offer healing for a person. Doesn't color them as somebody they weren't, because that's not healing. Tells true stories about who they were. I've done some funerals for people who were hard people. But they also did lots of good things in the background that nobody knew about. And so I could reveal a little bit about things they didn't know about them, as well as say every one of us who knew this person knew that they were curmudgeonly, that it was difficult to be with them at times. But did you also know that they preached the good news quietly by volunteering at the local shelter every Friday night? Did you know that they fed the hungry at the soup kitchen every Thanksgiving? There are good and bad. So what are the needful words for today? For today, not for tomorrow. You know, when Brian read to us from Scripture this morning, we picked a piece, I picked a piece from the Sermon on the Mount, the piece where Jesus said, stop worrying about tomorrow. Worry about now, and don't even worry about it. Trust in the now, this moment that is needful. Here you are in this moment. There's enough for tomorrow to be worried about on its own without you getting caught up in it. What can you do today? What do you need today? In the end, this line is about something that we don't do so well anymore in modern society, and that's trust. It's harder and harder to trust. If we're really honest with each other, we don't know which media outlet, if any, we can trust at all. So we watch them all, try to titrate from them maybe 2 or 3 out of 1,000 words that are actually real. We spend all of our time wondering if we can trust the person next to us who may turn us in, or may chase after us, or may be looking to swindle us. I don't know. Not here, of course. If you look at each other, you know that you're all good. You can trust each other. But we live in a world, and it's a real world. And the question is, what do you want in return for this thing that you're asking for me, or you're offering me? We can't just trust somebody who wants to offer us something good. You know, what's the catch is our question all the time. Do we, when we ask God to give us today our daily bread, ask ourselves, what is the catch? If you provide this for me, God, what do I have to do in return? Nothing. Nothing. The God that we love asks that we only learn to trust, that we only learn to love, and that we take risks every day. It feels very risky to be alive in today's world. It feels very risky. You know, we all feel like we're living in the times that's the traditional Confucian curse, the Confucian curse. May you live in interesting times. These are indeed interesting times. How can we trust in these times? How can we lean into God? How can we love in the hard moments? So much easier to shout and hate. How can we learn to live from a place of love? Give me just enough love to make it through today, is this prayer. Give me just enough bread so I can make it through today. I'm not asking for tomorrow because tomorrow is unbearable for me. But today, I need just enough. And God, I'm going to trust you enough to give me enough to make it. That's this prayer. Give us today our daily bread. So, this week, it seems so simple to me that instead of a folding sheet, I just gave you the front and back of a sheet. Look at that, just so easy. And the back of the sheet is review. Oh my gosh. So the front is the only fresh new stuff. The back is review. The front invites you to have some discussion questions, some journaling questions, some reflection questions. I consider the reflection questions to use them any way you want to. I don't care. And then a daily practice. Maybe every time you sat down to eat. I thought this was an interesting practice that came to me. Before eating, pause and name one physical need you have, one emotional need you have, one relational need that you have, as a way of praying before your meals. What is one thing I need? Physically, emotionally, relationally. What are the one things I need? What is needful? And let that be your prayer. May this, what is needed, arise. Because that is essentially what Give Us Today Our Daily Bread invites us to do. Look at your life this week. I've been looking at my life. I get to do it the week before and in reflection the week after I preach. What does Give Us Today Our Daily Bread really mean for you in your daily life? What does it mean for me? Just an opportunity to reflect. I want to invite you to remain